Hello, everyone. My name is TrupsLP. I think we're live if I timed this correctly. Hello, and once again, welcome to another political recap stream. I am joined with my lovely, moist, and slightly concerned host, Omegon. Say hello, Omegon.
I just went to check to see if the stream was live, and the first thing I got was an ad. That would be the only time you've seen an ad on this channel.
Nice.
I'll even screen cap it for posterity so you know.
I'm sure there won't be an ad once I start talking.
Oh boy. Hello, everyone. Hope you're all having an absolutely cracking day. It's been quite something, hasn't it?
Yes, definitely something. Don't know what that something is, but it was that.
Yeah, proof of ad, by the way, is in the sources.
Oh, fancy that. So, besides the topic at hand, which I see the chat has already been exploring on their own, how has your week been?
It's been okay. I mean, I uploaded the Nicocado Avocado video to premiere
Yes,
tonight.
I saw that.
I waited all week for that to go yellow. It hasn't gone yellow. So I couldn't appeal monetization issues because it's still green. Which makes me worry that it's gonna go yellow round now anyway, and I'll end up losing. Just a fan donated £10 to say witty comment not found. Thank you, Witty, for Just a Fan for the £10 donation. It's very generous of you. Uploaded that, changed the schedule for uploading. Here we've had 3 videos this week. I firmly believe they are very well made. I've made a concerted effort to improve the quality. My notes are more thorough, so I think, yeah, that works. And today I was at my father's because I was requested there for a barbecue, and it was alright actually. Nephew played
Social distancing barbecue, I hope.
No, and had some food, soy-based stuff for the nieces, and I tried that out because reasons. Hey, Felfop. And yeah, nephew was in the hot tub, which was great. My sister was helping him, and he was just kicking all the water in everyone's faces.
Yeah.
How was your week?
Kids.
Well, he's disabled, so he only has legs really that work, kind of. So it's kind of
I understand.
It's really good to see him do that. How about yourself?
Actually, this is technically my last week of working from home. I go back into work next week.
Great.
With some more guidelines set forth by my company.
Okay.
Some guidelines in order to keep people safe. A lot of them are, they're what you expected. Social distance, keep a mask on while you're in common areas. Basically what you'd expect a corporate system to try and push, just to make sure that they cover, check all the boxes.
Okay.
They're doing that. Now that doesn't necessarily, remedy all concerns that exist, especially because, well, we have to work on the same pieces of hardware in certain circumstances, so it doesn't really matter if you have a mask on, does it? Not to mention, I mean, people will eventually take off their masks at some point, and
right,
whatever. The thing is flawed.
Yeah.
The idea. But I understand that's what they're trying. They're trying their best, and
at least they're trying, which is all that matters.
Right.
And before you continue,
yeah,
Erin, thank you for the £2 donation. Did you hear McDonald's is going to reopen all drive-throughs? I don't like Menky D, so it might be a good thing. My sister lives near a drive-through, and she loves McDonald's.
I didn't know they closed any drive-throughs.
They did close all of them in the UK. All fast food was shut down essentially, unless it's takeaway. I did one other productive thing. I took some hard drives out of my sister's old laptops. One was made by Zoostorm, and it's so old, but it had a 250 gigabyte hard drive in, and I'm like, that is now my archive for all my YouTube content. So I bought a little, one of those little cases you put small hard drives in. Yeah.
Yes.
And I now back all my work up on that as well, which I think is quite.
I have a desire at some point to take all of the hard drives that I have and make like a server rack.
It's not a bad idea, really, is it?
Because I'm a tech geek, obviously.
Well, the other one's only 40 gigabytes, but I'm still going to keep it because seriously, why not?
Oh yeah, of course. But you know that's just my being a tech geek and wanting to overcomplicate and at the same time organize everything that I have, right?
Yeah.
It's a very strange thing. It's like, well, why do you need that? Well, it's because I have a fuck ton of hard drives.
Hmm.
And why do I need that? Because it's cool, okay?
Well, I have an 8 terabyte hard drive arriving tomorrow for the computer. Because
I have a external storage that's that big that I put
uh,
all of my videos and raw footage and stuff like that
I
into.
went internal because I thought, screw it, I want hard drive
Yeah,
space. I've got far too many
no,
games
that's
that have
fair.
far too much that require too much space. But getting massively away from politics. Otherwise, it's just been a quiet week of mostly
That's good.
Mostly Brexit in this country. There's been some
I
Corona.
noticed that.
There was a system the NHS tried to, well, they were going to introduce for checking people. It crashed really quickly, which was really funny. There was a lot of bias in the media, which they're still going on about. And yeah, it's kind of. I know it felt tinfoil hatty when I said that it felt like a distraction from the Barnier bill, but actually, some people did comment that on today's video. That wasn't what I was saying. I was saying that's what others said, but it wouldn't matter because politicians have to then look at the bill regardless. Every politician will have to see the bill because they can't vote on something they haven't read.
Right.
You edit
Well,
all
I
your
mean,
videos on-
they can, but it's just terribly irresponsible.
It is, yes. And Felthop, CPC 464 is the best Amstrad to ever exist ever. If anyone says otherwise, don't at me. My first ever games console, so I know what he's talking about.
I'm a little too young for that.
It was the 90s. It was a glorious time. Tape cassette video games. What else do you want in life?
Solid state hard drives.
Yeah, fair point. I did want them too. Yeah, I've got one anyway, but I've got another space. Yeah,
I think I have a solid state somewhere in there. Yeah, that's my secondary
I
hard
have
drive.
2 M2 slots. One's in use, but it's It's not big. It's like 256, and I'm like, you gotta be kidding me! I've been stiffed. It was meant to be 512.
Well, the good news is that a lot of those internal drives are really cheap.
They are
Like the 1 terabytes. The 1 terabytes are like what, $70?
50 quid.
Mm.
I know this because I was looking at one, and
Well, US dollars and British pounds
because
different.
they just changed the sign. They wouldn't change the conversion in the UK anyway because of taxes and all that nonsense. I can't really buy one though until next year now because, as I've mentioned, tax season and all that. So my focus going forward is always going to be that. But yes, anyway, we are massively off topic. Where should we start?
So I think we should actually start with what these protests are about first.
What are they about, Traps?
So it is about a gentleman whose name is George Floyd. He had been reported as to be committing or have committed forgeries.
Okay.
He was outside. He was in a vehicle, and the police officers accosted him and claimed that he was resisting arrest, and proceeded to put one of them, Derek Chauvin, decided to make sure he didn't move by putting his knee into the man's neck.
It should be noted there were 2 other cops with knees on the rest of his body.
Yes, but one of them is more in particular.
I know, but someone's going to point it out anyway, so I thought I'd just state it as a.
I mean, 4 cops got fucking fired, but
Yeah.
there's a pathway to this. The Derek Chauvin. The only reason why I mentioned him in particular is because he was charged with 3rd degree. Anyway, George Floyd. Basically, he's calling out to the cops, "Please, please, I can't breathe." The cop doesn't budge. By now, a crowd had gathered. Some people had taken cell phone video of the incident. And so there is video of the actual altercation from a couple of different angles, actually. And actually, Vent Hello, £10 donation, money towards a new drive Thank you very much,
That's very,
Ventilo.
very kind of you, Ventilo. Thank you. Yes, I'll certainly do that.
But the man ends up passing out and dying. And at this point in time, by the way, the cops didn't necessarily know he was dead. They maintained that knee on neck hold. I believe it was for about 18 minutes while they waited for the paramedics to arrive, at which point the guy had been dead for a bit.
Is that now? I have a
Um,
question before we continue. Okay, I'm going to just keep dropping things. That particular knee hold, is that standard procedure?
I think so, actually.
Because there are
It's not the
claims.
first time I've seen it.
Yeah, so I've seen many claims to counter, but I have also seen that used commonly. Although I don't know why they didn't check to make sure he was able to breathe. Seemed a bit heavy-handed. Sorry, I had to reach down and grab something. Heavy need, I guess. No
Yeah.
joke intended.
Well,
But you know what I
if
mean.
if you really lean into it, there is damage you can do.
Obviously.
The idea is to offset their balance and to keep their heads on the ground, especially when it comes to males, because as you very well know, a lot of our center of gravity is focused in our chest, which at a laying down position, if our necks cannot be moved very well, it's very hard to get any kind of upwards or sideways momentum. So it is valid in a sense to keep a person from resisting or from moving. However, in my opinion, I believe the man was already cuffed at this point. So the fact that you had to additionally apply more pressure to a person already subdued, and then when asked, "Please let me go," you just said, "Nah, fam." I'm I'm a little. I don't like it.
We agree on
I don't
this.
like it. Yeah, because I mean the man was subdued. Okay, the guy's not going anywhere. He's down on the ground. He asked you to help him, and when he asked you to help him, you called it out that he was resisting arrest, and then proceeded to jump on him with two other cops. I'm sorry. Go fuck yourself.
I kind of want to quote
Um.
Kratos in Gods of War. You don't need to
mm,
continue hurting an enemy once they've been defeated. They're already beaten.
um.
You have nothing to prove.
Alice Rabbit says, "I don't understand why the crowd just stood there and watched. Why didn't they intervene?" I believe that's what you or interfere.
Interfere, same thing, I guess.
Either way, um, the simple act is that intervening against a police officer is itself a crime, regardless of whether or not you think that cop is doing a poor job.
I think fear would have played a part too, because of that.
Fear as well.
Because of
And
that.
also, if you imagine from a cop's point of view, you're the one with the gun and the legal action to do something about it. Unfortunately, I mean, there's perfectly, I understand that sentiment, but simply put, you can't. I do understand, and I feel for you, but it's not likely to happen in any sense of the situation. It's just asking to escalate a little bit further, and no one wants that in that situation anyway. And RW Bimby is correct. Many non-lethal actions can be lethal when overdone. That's very, very true. So what happens is this man ends up being pronounced dead, and Minneapolis has a series of protests that start happening. Now, these protests at first were Black Lives Matter protests and justice for George Floyd and all that stuff. The the protests started out pretty much peacefully. As of Wednesday night, you see what you now see in the news, which is fire, brimstone, looting, and rioting. Yes, Ricada Law did cover this. It says mainly it would put their own lives at risk. Yeah, you're correct. Um, so that's where we are now, and the scariest part, in my opinion, of that situation is, um, it started on a Wednesday, the rioting, right? Thursday, it continued. Here we are on Friday, and now they have an entire weekend to continue. In terms of a news cycle, this has taken over everything, and that's the baseline facts of the situation. Now, I know Meg and I have seen a bunch of news stories, a bunch of thought processes, a lot of opinions about the situation. And I told him before we started that I wanted this one in particular to be a conversation with all of us here, including you guys in the chat. I do want to, have that discussion with you guys as well. But Meg, what do you think about at least the baseline facts of this situation?
The baseline fact is a man was killed unnecessarily. All over something that was, yes, while a crime didn't require, once subdued, additional pressure to be applied. You had 3 officers on the guy, 1 leaning on his neck. That was excess and overkill. Others have used this to point out the past of the people involved, the officers, that is, as well as the man on the floor. Mm-hmm. While I do think they do provide interesting additional facts, neither of them I want to be drawn towards. I just want to be stuck on the one incident, which is what a lot of people are struggling to do and have used it in a rather nasty spin. We'll get to that later, I'm sure. With what we have seen happen and what others have said, because I don't know your country well enough, I really don't, to know if Cyrene in the chat is correct when Cyrene said that these guys will get acquitted. I don't know, because I don't know your system, but the fact it has been said so many times in so many other incidents does lend enough
concern.
Yeah. But then I don't know what because there was a doctor, a pathologist or something, an investigator of some kind, who said not all the information had been given. But I don't know if he was just saying that to what did they do? They said there was more information, but I don't know what more information you can possibly provide to what was seen on a video that would in any way not make them look not guilty.
Right. That's a great question also, in particular, and
one other additional thing, because I know in your country the police are on a bit of a, they are on this higher ground to the oiks. In this country, that's not the case at all. They are our bitch. That's what they are. They really are. It's why our policemen are a joke. So I don't know if that plays a part within your culture or in that particular area's culture as to whether or not the police will then, the 4 former officers, 3 or 4 officers, are they former now? Yeah, they are.
Yes.
They? Yeah. So I don't know if it will affect how they are treated going forward or not. Or their service will perhaps be used to protect them, which is interesting because others have posted the previous record of the officer whose name I've forgotten, who leaned on the guy's neck. I'm sorry if I forget Chauvin. Thank you. I'm really bad with names, so if I don't say names, I do apologise.
All right, I have a tab open with his name on it. So
I also can't remember the name of the guy who passed. I'm really sorry.
George Floyd.
George Floyd, thank you. I knew it was Floyd something. I was going to say Mayweather, but that's a boxer.
Right.
Former.
Floyd would be probably acceptable for now.
Yes. So
it's the last name.
I've lost my trail of thought. I'm sorry.
That's all right.
Right. I was talking about culture and police. I do worry that even though they are former officers, their records might be used to nullify the impact of any sentence they get if they are deemed guilty by a court if it goes to a court.
Mhm.
Charge does not mean it's gone there yet, does it?
Right. Well, I mean, that third degree charge just came out today.
Third.
So, third. Accidental,
Oh boy.
essentially.
Oh no. There is no justice at that point. There would never be a sentence that will actually sate those who have...
Actually, you know what's funny, though? Third degree murder is actually probably the most likely to get a conviction.
Oh, really? That's
because you need less evidence.
Well, you've got...
there's a different sort of evidence that you need for different kinds of crimes. If you were to try to call them on first degree murder, that means that you would have to prove intent
Right.
before the fact, and
So-
there's no way.
In this country,
you'll
it's
get
a little bit different. In this country, it all comes down to whether or not the police release the evidence to the Crown Prosecution Service or not, based on the number of people convicted for crimes they didn't actually commit, because our police are bent. Less evidence was poor wording. That's correct. Trapp's Bowman's correct.
Yeah, I do want to point that out. Less evidence was poor wording on my part. So the question about police culture in this country is very, very different depending on where you go.
Yeah.
Take like a rural town in Kansas where the police force is maybe 12 to 14 officers,
Right.
and everybody knows each other because they're the only ones who fucking live in that town, right?
Yeah.
The situation there is that a lot of people will, I don't want to say get away with things, but they're a little bit more lenient because it's almost more like it takes a village to raise a kid. Because in my mind, I'm thinking of, imagine like a kid gets a speeding ticket in that town.
Right.
The cop might pull him over and go, Johnny, look, I don't want to have to call your dad about this. So you go home and you know better than this and you think about it and know that we had this discussion. You know, that kind of threat is a lot more probable in an area where everyone knows each other as opposed to New York City.
Yeah.
Where you have to, police millions upon millions of people.
So we'll take this to Minneapolis then, or Baltimore, because I know there was an incident there as well, but we won't get to that too much. In Minneapolis, I assume it's a large city.
I believe it's the capital of Minnesota.
Is it?
No, that's a lie. Capital of Minnesota is St. Paul. But it is a large city. It is a large city.
I like the name.
I do too.
They also have a drug rehabilitation center there called Omegon. Not a joke. I knew that from 4 years ago. When somebody told me, and I looked it up, and there it was. You can get my docs there, I guess. I'm joking.
Great.
Do not contact
the UK
them.
man. The UK man in Minnesota.
Yeah. Do not contact them, please. That's poor. I have to I have to say it because some people are dicks. Based on what I saw on Twitter with this, I have to say it.
I imagine they'll just be like, "Sir, are you trying to get admitted to this drug rehabilitation program that you're talking about a squid online?"
Yes, squid. That's racist.
I think you may require some internment.
That's racist.
But anyway, it is a large city in Minnesota. Yes.
Okay. Thank you for clarifying that.
So it is one of those things where I doubt people. See, okay, I apologize for like skipping my brain around, but in my opinion, large cities have a different mentality when it comes to the people who join the police force of those cities.
Mm-hmm.
Those people usually can't do much else, or
thanks, Aaron Echo.
Or their families have been involved in the police force.
Mm-hmm.
So, unfortunately, a lot of police officers actually are like those high school jocks who never amounted to anything. And it's almost like going to the military as a way to find yourself.
Right.
Some do that. I'm not saying all of them, but some of them are like that. You'll find that the worst cops have the least reason to be a cop. They have the least amount of like care for their community or like vested interest in the betterment of your people, that kind of thing. You know what I mean?
Yes.
That's it's a lot more plausible that these bad cops are the ones who don't have anything, and without vid, how the fuck do you choke after a guy is unconscious for long enough to kill? You compress the carotid artery for a long enough time that oxygen can no longer flow to the brain.
That makes
And
me
then once the man
cringe.
passes out with the continued applied pressure, then that man will no longer be able to supply the brain. So you lose out that like 6 to 7 minute window of possible defibrillation.
Just thinking about that makes me like I visibly like recoil. Just the idea of choking somebody. Such a stupid thing to do.
I'm quite well learned in Brazilian jiu-jitsu, so
Fam, I
I'm
did judo. It's completely different. We don't seek to harm. We just want to throw you around for a little bit.
Brazilian jiu-jitsu is like, did you know I could turn you into a pretzel and choke you out at the same time?
I can hip toss you real well.
Mm-hmm.
And punch quite
Yeah.
hard too, but
It's a
that's
good
something
time.
else.
It's a good time.
I'll take it.
I recommend it to anybody, actually. It's great for self-defense, especially if you find yourself being a small female. I very much recommend Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. It gives you a lot more self-confidence. I know some people lack that.
What's that?
Self-confidence? I don't know. I just do this online
Yeah, same.
with an avatar instead of my
Same.
face.
Yeah, I'm a coward. You're right.
Mhm. Anywho's, so there was an interesting dichotomy that I had brought up last night when I was discussing this with Ash
Right.
that I wanted to bring up to see what your thoughts were.
Go for it.
So the media has portrayed this situation in a much different light than they portrayed the Michigan protests. Have you noticed that?
Yes. I saw people using the protests in Michigan to say it's okay for white people to do a protest, but not black people.
I mean, yeah, that's basically what it boils down to. But I want to raise a different point, and this is more to your confusion of the cultures of what America is essentially. If you've watched any of the videos of the Minnesota riots, the 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 people who are protesting and rioting are by and large unarmed. Have you noticed that?
Yes. I'll see that,
There
Felfop.
was
Thanks
an
for subbing to Trups. That's very kind of you.
Oh, thank you, Felfop,
I've known
and good luck on being a dad teacher.
I've known him since I started my channel. He's a good guy.
Oh, good man. But it is an unarmed populace that Minnesota is currently, throwing the riot police at.
Yes, I'd heard this. Is that because they're strict
Now,
gun laws or something, or is this something else?
I'm not entirely sure, but regardless, we'll look at this on a more constitutional level since we're discussing Michigan versus Minnesota, because I don't know the intricacies of these two states.
Right.
But the idea that I wanted to impress upon you as kind of an example,
Mm-hmm.
so when these protests started before the rioting happened, they did march out riot police. They marched out riot police before there was a riot. It was just protest.
Really?
And they gave the crowd someone to yell at, essentially. And so, there was tear gas and mace and stuff like that. Not a whole lot of it, but there was some of it at the beginning. However, imagine you were an individual who understood their constitutional rights, and you decided with all of your friends who supported you that you would walk through the street chanting Black Lives Matter and justice for George Floyd, while with the Black Guns of America, a group essentially that advocates for responsible Black ownership of firearms.
You mean like the people
Right?
who were stood outside their businesses with their guns, peacefully
Yes.
protecting them?
Yes.
I saw the videos.
And part of the LA riots, there were individuals like this as well.
I mean, like was that the Korean rooftop gangs, or was that something else?
Yeah, yeah.
Because I heard people talking
shout
about,
out to the Mad Lad.
Yeah, I was about to say, I remember that, but I also remember I did see someone in the chat earlier reference it and say that it's against most states, like banned that kind of stuff from happening. Is that true?
What, banning a fucking standoff?
Is it a standoff at that point? Because it sounds like people going into it.
I don't think you are legally allowed to sit on your rooftop and proceed to pick off people on the street. No, I think that's very illegal.
Target practice.
Mm.
I'm joking, by the way.
Wrong.
I know this is a very serious subject, but I genuinely can't.
You have to introduce a little bit of levity, though.
Honestly, this is such a dark subject.
It is, but it needs to be talked about. But the interesting thing was, and the point that I was trying to get across is, an armed populace is harder to push around.
Mm-hmm.
It's an intrinsic value that American culture has. It is much harder to push around somebody who knows that at the end of the day, you are a man, they are a man, colloquially speaking, and both people are on even footing with the arms that they are holding, which makes them essentially even. Because you have to remember, the whole aspect of a police force is that we accept the fact that a minority of the population of each individual district, county, state, etc., we have given credence to the fact that they wear a blue uniform and a badge on, and they carry a gun. We have allowed them to do so. Right?
Mm-hmm.
We have made it so that these men are allowed to enforce the laws set forth by our state legislatures. Because imagine if that entire population decided, no, we don't respect the badge. We don't respect the uniform. And they were an armed populace.
Mm-hmm.
That's how you get revolution and boogaloo. That's where that meme comes from. That's that whole idea.
I had wondered where it came from.
Yeah, well, the whole idea is that if you are a man who has a gun and another man approaches you with a gun, you kind of look at each other and go, what could I do for you? And that person really can't say, I'm here to strip you of your rights.
Read the super chat.
Oh, really?
Trups.
So what you're saying, Trups, is we need to give police lightsabers. Thank you for the £5 donation. Aaron, I think if we gave anybody a lightsaber, we would have more decapitations or otherwise loss of limbs than we could handle. I think we would have to open up more hospitals than we did for COVID for accidental dismemberment.
Yes, I have a lightsaber.
I heard it. Mine's out of batteries.
Mine. I changed mine yesterday, actually.
Ah, you're so cool.
Right. Sorry. I see some very serious commentary in the chat. Should we address that before we go any further?
Surely, what do you see?
Well, our Bimby's comments from the start of the stream were quite, I think, not controversial or anything like that, but very serious points to be made. More recent being unarmed is classification to the killer, unarmed choke to death.
Right. Basically, right there, unarmed is what somebody says after the fact, in a sense. Because imagine you try to disenfranchise somebody's life, liberty, or pursuit of happiness, and you didn't know they were unarmed, then you usually are the one who fails. So you usually don't hear that unarmed thing. Unarmed is, yes, the classification of... I don't know if it's necessarily the killer is the one who is unarmed because you're a police officer. Yes, you're fucking armed.
So another one I want to address as well. Ventilo, they're not justified in the riots. Protesting, all good. Stealing and arson are not. So I want to... I'm not going to do a hot take on this, I promise. I've seen two very prominent people I used to watch a lot, one of whom I'd forgotten existed, actually, tweet about this. Sean Head tweeted about it because Andy No put out some videos on Twitter showing people doing the destruction. Now, he had attributed this to far-left extremists and rioters under to Black Lives Matter related stuff, I believe. She joked. She replied, not joking. She said it was half joking, but I'll be honest, I think she meant it when she said, "How do you know they're far-left protesters?" Ignoring that in a couple of the other videos, they were spraying socialism or communism all over walls of burnt-out buildings. The other was the amazing... but then she retweeted it eventually and referenced 1776, I think, or something, and how he was... how Andy No was reporting on it as if he was implying that possessions were more important than the people involved. But all I saw were the videos. I didn't see him actually say or imply anything of the sort. The other person was the amazing atheist, who I'd forgotten existed, who was the same person who was applauding people getting arrested for not wearing face masks, to now be okay with the destruction of the property aimed at the police. Which, I know there's context for it, but it does seem, it can come across to some, I'm sitting on the fence on this one, it can come across as a tad hypocritical. And yes, he is still going, apparently. I couldn't believe it either. I thought he was dead from obesity because he loves socialism so much he can't stop eating all the pies. But with the riots, a lot of it has come down to the possessions, which many have taken issue with, and rightly so, and those who counter it saying, it's not about that. You're taking away from the real point. And I tend to agree... Thank you, R.W. Bimby. I'm not senpai. Do you mean Trups? He's senpai. Yes. Thank you for the double buck.
Thank you for the $2.
Yes, thank you. I can understand. I do tend to think protesting is always important. And those who are using pieces of quotes from Martin Luther King to make a point, that's not... I
want to point out that Martin Luther King wasn't all peaceful. There were things that he did that would be considered
true
riots or protests. He was present at riots.
Yes, I'm aware of that. The thing that people have also pointed out is that while taking quotes from him to then implement in a manner that others attribute to Malcolm X seems a bit odd. I don't know enough about Malcolm X, to be honest, so I can't possibly say whether there's any truth to that.
He killed people.
Yeah. But I can respect protesting. I really can. And in this, I'll be honest, you got a point. Protest. But then you don't. You really don't need to then make your point by destroying all your major food distributors. You don't need to do it to destroy your tech shops. You don't need to destroy small businesses to the point where GoFundMes had to be created for people to recover the losses. I saw a guy, he had just built the bloody business. He was trying to open before COVID-19 hit. He had to put it on hold. And his business was
And he was
absolutely...
a firefighter.
Yeah, it was absolutely a nut. You've seen it. And now it's got $200,000 on the GoFundMe. Honestly, I hope you're able to rebuild your business. I really am hoping you're successful in that. Because so many people...
I was
It's so unnecessary.
so sad when I heard that, because I want to point out that looting and rioting, minus the Target
Yeah.
that went down, and maybe the AutoZone, I don't know.
I saw
The low-income housing that they torched, the man's bar, and actually another man's bar as well. These were mostly for that minority community.
Yes. But I do...
So the fact that the community, I hate this so much because
I
it's
do.
not even the people of the area.
No.
There are people who will transplant from other places to attend these rallies because they're opportunists.
I saw your boy Pat, that's his name, he has a YouTube channel called that, pointing out that many of the people going to those protests came from white suburbs to come and destroy these areas. And I sat back and I'm like,
Did they torch a library?
I don't know about the location of number of these people. My view is you should protest, but you don't need to destroy things to make your point. Yes, I will agree, your country, and people will rightly point this out, you've gotten stuff done because of protesting and because of internal
Absolutely.
fighting. Absolutely. You are king at relationships.
I think we actually did the most. We do the best when we are disagreeing.
And you truly do that. And that's fantastic. It really is, because I like that. But and maybe it is a high horse thing. I sit on it and think, you really don't. You don't need to start burning stuff to make your point. In fact, all you've done is make yourselves look like the very thing those supposed racists, and I'm sure some are racists, stereotype you as. Make a legitimate point. You don't need to destroy things to make it.
The worst thing is that
And people can
it
disagree with that.
spits in the face of these people fighting against what some would call systemic racism, or the idea that when you are born poor, you will stay poor.
Right.
This was a guy from the LA riots who was crying because looters and rioters broke his store, stole his stuff, and he was crying in the middle of the street yelling, "I'm from the ghetto. I'm just like all you. Why have you done this to me?"
Mm-hmm.
And you had another one, a gentleman who had opened up a bar, who went back to survey the damage, and when he was there, looters came back to try and steal his safe. And he said, "I worked so hard for this," and he was crying about it. And you look at this and you go, this isn't justice. This isn't...
The annoying thing is,
No.
this is such a huge... I mean, it's a reaction, I'll give you that. But it becomes a massive distraction from the main problem, because it's fallout. And annoyingly, this kind of fallout, it is a distraction from the original thing. And I think that's so tasteless. Or am I wrong on that?
And it takes away from the truth, and it drives away people that would have supported them.
Mm-hmm.
That's the part that pisses me off the most. I was all for their cause, and I was telling Ash this last night. I was all for this absolute bullshit to be protested against, to be, taken all the way to the top. I don't care if the guy gets off from just Minnesota. You keep fucking pressing your lawmakers for it. You bring it to the top if you have to, because this is fucking wrong. I saw the video. The video was fucked.
Agreed.
The guy didn't deserve to die for a report of forgery. Absolutely not. Forgery does not carry that kind of sentence. The guy didn't deserve it. And the moment I stop being able to support you is when the group decides that okay, we're so mad that we're gonna take it out on our neighbors, on our friends, on our family, on our community. We are going to break their businesses. We're going to set fire to low-income housing. What?
Apparently a homeless shelter as well, according to the chat.
And a library?
Oh
What are you
dear.
fucking? What are you, insane?
The only,
Who are you getting back at?
So with that actually leads handily on to a tweet. 2 tweets, in fact. And one of them was, although kept up, was hidden by Twitter. Do you know what I'm talking about?
I have no idea.
Donald Trump. He put out 2 tweets with regards to this. In the first one,
Okay.
I think the first one he referred to the Floyd incident. The second, though, was one that got hidden. He talked about the mayor of Minneapolis being a bit of a, well, essentially, I think he belittled him for being too lefty or something, and the quote I think everyone was using was, "If they loot, we shoot," with reference to the National Guard being deployed to take control of Minneapolis, and that quote is what everyone is now latching onto. If you loot, or something like "you loot, we shoot," to that effect. I would confirm it, but there's a cat on my arm. I can't actually quickly look it up. And it's people have said, this is you now saying you're going to shoot on the people, and then people. It's such a weird one, because considering how offensive the people who are protesting are being, it's a very interesting. Well, maybe it's not. Maybe it's not those who are actually protesting. It's possibly just regular keyboard warriors at that point. Are you looking for the tweets?
I'm looking for the autopsy.
Autopsy?
Yeah, Sean said that I should look at the autopsy because it's suspicious, and then I need to read the initial arrest report and autopsy. The autopsy doesn't mesh with the video fact.
Oh, there was a claim that more would come out.
Yeah, I'm curious though.
Oh, so here we go. The tweet is, these thugs. Oh, so 2 tweets. I can't stand back and watch this happen to a great American city, Minneapolis. A total lack of leadership. Either the very weak radical left mayor Jacob Frey get his act together and bring the city under control, or I will send the National Guard and get the job done. Right. Sorry, get the job done right. These thugs are dishonoring the memory of George Floyd, and I won't let that happen. Just spoke to Governor Tim Walz and told him the military is with him all the way. Any difficulty and we will assume control, but when the looting starts, the shooting starts. Thank you. Oh.
Interesting.
It's an interesting quote.
So here's the interesting thing.
Okay, go on.
The autopsy revealed no physical findings that support a diagnosis of traumatic asphyxia or strangulation. Mr. Floyd had underlying health conditions, including coronary artery disease and hypertensive heart disease. The
Wait.
combined effects of Mr. Floyd... Yeah?
His neck didn't show any signs of any pressure?
Apparently not.
How strange is that?
The combined effects of Mr. Floyd being restrained by the police, his underlying health conditions, and any potential intoxicants in his system likely contributed to his death. I don't like that that assumption, because it says any potential. You finished an autopsy, but you didn't know if the guy had any drugs in his system?
Oh dear.
Are you fucking kidding me? Potential intoxication? Shouldn't you figure that out first?
Can we address a
before
comment?
You put out a statement?
Yes. Can we address a comment that is
Oh, sure.
Cynical Lindsay. Also, I'm tired of hearing people say this is a race issue. This isn't a race issue. This is a ordinary citizens versus totalitarian authorities issue. Claiming it's a race issue dishonors all victims. I'm raising it because I think that's a very interesting comment, and I'd like to get your view on that. Do you think it's a race issue, or do you think it's not?
Oh no, I don't think it's a race issue. Well, I don't think it's a larger race issue. It may have been a race issue between the cop and the man. I don't know if the cop's a racist. He might be. I don't know.
There was, and I did mention this to Chops before we started. There was, and I think I mentioned it right early on. There were tweets put out of this guy's track record going back a decade or two, indicating that he had a track record of prejudice against those who are of other races, and every time got off. I say got off.
Oh, by the way,
go on.
the family is having their own autopsy done because they don't like how they don't want the state to tell them what did or did not happen. They would like somebody they've paid to tell them the truth instead of somebody who may be on the payroll for the government. Which, you know what? I can't even blame them.
I can't blame them. I agree because this seems off. But
there's no evidence of strangulation. That man's fucking face was red and he was black.
Can you do a second autopsy on a body that's already been cut open?
In terms of neck, yeah. Totally.
What I mean is, surely there's already going to be investigative, like markings there from the procedure. How are they going to? Unless they've managed. No, they can do it around the neck. It's
well, the question then becomes, what do you see on the actual? Like the bones are still in place.
No, you're right. I was thinking about the body. I misspoke.
Yeah, I mean, if they were like trying to like inter the body, then yeah, you might have issues.
Wait, we've reconnected. Thank you. Sorry, it randomly disconnected. Carry on.
Oh, good one. Yeah. No evidence of foul play on the corpse at all. Just died for no reason. Not like he was walking around fine before, right?
Oh dear.
I can't believe that. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Bullshit.
Bimby, I also remembered that has happened before. I think when I've heard of second autopsies happening, my worry is that it is after the first one tainted. But hopefully photos were taken, and as Lulubell puts it, it will make it very interesting. I tend to agree. By the way, that sounds like bullshit. Absolute bullshit. Yeah,
that sounds like absolute horseshit. Plus, all the police reports kept saying that, he was resisting. I'm like, yeah, from the floor with his hands cuffed, with your neck, with your knee in his neck. He was resisting.
He was resisting with maybe that was maybe a seizure, to be honest.
He was trying to breathe, asshole.
Yeah. I've seen so many people instead go down the path of race issue on Twitter. I wanted to just, because today's was a big that video, and I wanted to just chill a bit, relax, and I couldn't do it because I ended up actually feeling quite anxious because I kept seeing the Twitter stuff and it was all about race. It was all racial. And I mean, surely with those who are members of communities are of another race, let's go with that. I couldn't phrase it better because apparently my mind shut down for a moment. I'm sure in some areas there are issues that can be perceived to be race-related. I would never seek to deny there is or is not a race-related issue in some areas of any country. That is arrogant. I don't know America. The UK does still have issues, but it's nowhere near this level. It's just nowhere near.
I mean, you guys have different issues in that you cover up a 40-year-old rape gang.
We cover up a lot of things because apparently
we have the issue in that some of our cops are racist. Yeah.
And that spirals and it causes a lot of
problems. And
our
government is fucked.
It doesn't help. I want to just mention I had asked somebody on Twitter earlier, as Trups knows, if because of this and coronavirus, if there was a chance Biden would beat Trump now because of this. Because the people will say this can be played for politics, and let's face it, it is election season. It's going to get used. There's no denying it. Ahmaud Arbery is going to get used. It will by someone. Do you think that this will impact on Trump in the election?
If I recall, Donald Trump actually had made a tweet about this circumstance, about what was happening in Minnesota. Mm-hmm. I'm looking it up real quick because No, not looting and shooting, not that one. The one beforehand.
Because I will, for the chat, say this particular person believes that Biden can win, could win even. So it's not a case of, yes, definitely going to win. But then running mate
Huh.
is another issue, and others will believe that Kamala Harris is a
Okay.
possibility, or Abrams, whoever Abrams is.
Stacey Abrams,
Thank you.
failed gubernatorial candidate in Georgia.
Okay.
That actually, this is interesting. Ready?
Okay, go on.
Donald Trump 16 hours ago. I can't stand back and watch this happen to a great American city, Minneapolis. A total lack of leadership. Either way, the very weak radical left mayor Jacob Frey get his act together and bring the city under control, or I will send in the National Guard and get the job done right. These thugs are dishonoring the member of George Floyd, and I won't let that happen. Just spoke to Governor Tim Walz and told him that a military is with him all the way and any difficulty, and we will assume control. But when the looting starts, the shooting starts. Thank you.
Do you remember about 15 minutes ago I read that tweet?
Yeah, but I want to point out something.
Okay, go on.
This man is saying these thugs are dishonoring the memory of George Floyd, and I won't let that happen. Is he wrong though?
Some people have hopped onto the thug remark and no joke, have attributed thugs to all black people, and that's not a joke.
No,
and it's
white people are looting too,
and it's all white people making that comment. I saw this because I looked at the people doing it. They all have profile pictures of themselves with the check marks, and I was like, "Yes, that's." It wasn't necessarily savage. At least he had a point to make for it. I thought perhaps he zoned out when I read it.
No. I wanted to point out the fact that because I remember Donald Trump had talked about it.
Yeah.
And we had brought it up, like, do you think that this will impact his credibility or his chances in 2020? No, because I think he's standing on the right side of the issue. I think he agrees that George Floyd, his memory needs to be
he's not going to win,
remembered in a good way and not tainted by looting and rioting.
I agree.
I think that's the correct opinion to have.
I think for the sake of optics, nothing screams I want equality more than stealing a dozen flat screen TVs.
I saw that video of some dude fucking wheeling out a gurney at a fucking
Target,
or one of those like little fucking like I don't know what the fuck you actually call them. They're like mild forklifts, but without the fork.
Oh,
they're basically just like
they're trolley jacks.
They're basically just movers. True. Trolleys.
That's what they call trolley jacks.
Yeah, and the dude just had stacked electronics on it. And I was like, what the fuck are you
that doesn't. That? I assume you're going to go back to your house. Oh wait, it's on fire.
Right. I was like, are you going to bring it back to the low-income housing on fire right now?
He's just going to make a house out of it.
Oh my god.
Honestly, I do apologize.
At least I got my 40-inch.
Hey, wait.
No, you fuck.
My sister's TV's bigger.
Yeah, I mean, the guy still had to carry it.
Yeah, it's just stupid.
But like,
yeah. So Murder Spoon's got a point. The jogger guy is a trickier one. That one's a really tricky one. This one is. And we agree on this one. A police officer fucked it. Well and truly fucked it. And it has actually spiraled because it took so long for something to happen. That screams injustice to so many. And it's unacceptable. You need judges. I offer my services to the, air quotes, great city, end air quotes, of Minneapolis.
Remember the guy during the 2011 London riots who stole a big bag of valued rice?
Yes. Because he had his priorities straight. Yeah. During the riots, it was a great time. He walked out with it over his head, and it was a 5-kilo bag, and that will last you quite a while. As someone that loves
the question is, did Trump even make a comment about Ahmaud Arbery?
I know that journalists tried to get him to talk about that. I also know journalists have tried to, at press briefing, to get him to talk about Mr. Floyd. But he has avoided questions. Like, he hasn't done interviews. And I think it's...
I would too.
I think in this context, it's the right thing to do, because there's no way he can answer the questions and ever give a correct answer, because they're just...
Oh, he knows that too.
Because of the way... And I don't want to say the bias. It was like when talking about China, and he spoke down to a reporter who herself... was of East Asian descent.
That was convenient, wasn't it?
And she then harped on about it as if it was all about her. He was right to walk away because he knew what was going to happen next.
Yeah, convenient that that person who asked the question about China was also Chinese, so that in case they brought up any kind of issues, then you could go, "Are you fucking being racist to me?"
Yeah, he was right to walk away from that. And to answer
Look,
by the way,
that's some bullshit.
I do want to say, as an outsider, with the earlier thing I said about whether Biden can beat Trump, even with this and coronavirus and the damage to your employment, and no, Biden, I don't think he'll win. I don't think
Biden literally doesn't exist.
He's been tweeting a lot about this,
hardly...
and he's been very much on the side of the protesters. I know Barack Obama put a statement out, and he was very, very neutral. Well, he's very much... He didn't... He's clearly honest. He has a position, but he instead wants to quell the anger, and that's very respectful, I think, because he's not seeking to fuel it. He wants it to stop, so justice can be served.
Well, remember, it was Barack Obama who literally called progressivism the circular firing squad. He called intersectionality a circular firing squad.
Did he? I didn't know that.
Yeah.
It
was a while ago.
That's quite the comment.
But he made a very,
we'll
call it red-pilled kind of statement when he did.
Our stream's flashing red. How strange is that?
Yeah, I saw it pop in, pop out.
Sorry, guys. I want to apologise if it's done that to anyone. I do actually want to ask a question to the chat, because this has been quite a divisive subject, and I know that from the like-to-dislike ratio. Because you don't usually get much on many dislikes unless Trups is talking. So those who have, I'd very much like to know what you think about whether you think we are wrong. Because I don't think we're giving too much of a position that is controversial. The cop fucked up and should face justice for that. They lost their job. Their pensions are done. They need to do time. They're probably going to maybe do time for third-degree murder.
I want them to be arrested.
Right. So that I firmly am in that corner. The peaceful protesting that was happening, absolutely fine. Destroying the city, not so much. I get the point of why it happened. I don't condone it. I won't condone it. I don't see violence as a suitable way of dealing with it, but I am very much aware that it is very much ingrained in your country's culture to destroy things.
Better question, and this is a lot more of a loaded question. I will warn you ahead of time.
I'm very much
the people who did dislike it, why do you hate minority-owned businesses? Why do you hate minority-run communities?
Oh God, that is.
Why do you hate the fact that these black people have their own stores that have been looted and raided, and that they are crying on CNN that a looter has shown up while he's there to steal his safe? I want you to tell me why you disapprove of that man's dream being crushed. Tell me.
That is so loaded, and I'm gonna trust you in the chat to not engage if not needed. And Lulubell, I'm English as well, so my opinion is very much outsider, which is why, I'll be honest, while others have said there's a nuance to this, I don't see it as nuanced. I see it as because I don't understand, and I don't see it as nuanced because I'm not there. I don't understand the culture. I really don't. I just see a crime committed on somebody that was alleged to have committed a crime. Nothing happening for far too long to deal with the issue. protests happening peacefully, aggressive protests happening, fire. And that is essentially, like Pink Brian says, it is the equivalent of taking a dump in your own bed. Meow.
Yeah.
You're not going to meow again? Okay, now's the time you shut your mouth, Peanut Gallery. Thank you. Regardless of what Floyd did, in no way did he deserve to die. And also destroying the places and economically risking the people in your society is not a good way to remember a life, no good legacy. Because your economy currently is suffering enough as it is. This is going to do the city of Minneapolis no favours whatsoever. And
no, of course not. And it's going to hurt a lot of people who have given their lives
and Maverick
to
Muffin
these
is right.
local businesses.
It is an abuse of power. I agree.
Mm-hmm. Without a doubt.
Is there anything else we should talk about with this?
Well, I'm kind of giving the stream a little bit of time to catch up so that we can... I want to see if anybody's got a word for my bitching.
I don't do it very often because I rarely get... we normally have it in the chat. That's the issue. But tonight, weirdly, I'm not seeing it. I'm seeing people put out an opinion, and I have to say, thank you, because I genuinely appreciate that, and we always want the chat engaged. It's why when there are people that disagree with Trups, he engages with them in the chat while I'm talking, usually. And Christina, yeah, that actually is a theory many have put out there already. That many, possibly, allegedly, may not be from the great city of Minneapolis.
the great city.
I'm going to keep saying it. Eventually, it's going to stick. Like
I mean, that's what Trump said. So,
like oil on a pan. So, do you have plans for your weekend, Trups?
I gotta shave my my quarantine beard.
Lol. Down to a goatee?
I gotta go back to work. I gotta go back to, I gotta not look like a homeless man. Let's put it that way.
Oh, I live like that every day. It's a great feeling.
Yeah, my hair is fucking long as hell. I have about as long as hair as I did when I was in high school. And I was like a scene kid in high school, so...
Cringe.
So yeah, that's fair.
Okay. Is there anything you'd like to shill?
I put out a video yesterday talking about the voter fraud that came out about New Jersey and how they're basically they an NAACP leader has called for a full recount because
the double ballot thing.
Oh, their mail-in ballots. Some of them voted who didn't vote, and some of the people who who did vote didn't get counted.
There was a claim
so
I saw
they said
of
it was
a
so
duplicate.
fucked.
There was a claim of a duplicate ballot in some instances.
Yeah. So it's so fucked that they said, "Nah, man, do it again."
Good call. And I had a barbecue today, Bimby. My dad's. I won't be eating tomorrow because seriously, too much bread. I am taking tomorrow off.
Bread.
Tomorrow's no computer day. I'm going to go for a walk, and since the big video came out today, I'm going to delete all the bloody files, and then get to work on the next Content Constable. And
woohoo!
Yeah, Deji, by the way, if anyone's interested. If you don't know who he is, Comedy Shorts Gamer, brother of KSI. Massive twat.
Yeah.
I've been watching him for years. Massive twat. Other than that, might paint some Warhammer, play my guitar, go from there, really. So... over to you, I guess.
Yep. So I want to thank you guys for joining us today. I appreciate all of the engagement in the chat, even those 7 dislikes of people who did not want to come forward and talk about it.
I want double digits.
Pussy. And this dickhead is putting on an extra posh Brit accent. I mean, if you'd like, the American could do it too, but I won't.
You sound just like me.
Oh, no, I wasn't trying there. I was just like, oh, I could. Do you want me to?
Jolly good. Absolutely spiffy.
Oh yes, quite.
Um,
Yes, would you like some caviar with your tea?
It's not caviar.
Yeah,
It's
smashing.
smashing. It's caviar.
Yes. Anyway, I thank you guys all for joining us, and
Thanks, Zeus.
yeah. Say goodnight, Omegon.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.
I think the cat got the last word in.